Benei Noah Adonai Eloheinu elenu ma'aseh edenu konana elenu ma'aseh edenu konanehu. Bezrat Hashem, we're now going to learn the mystical psychology of Pesach, how mitzvot serve as the archetypes of the collective Jewish unconscious. Introduction. Every year at Pesach time, a unique vortex is opened in the time-space continuum, which enables a special type of divine radiance to enter onto the earth. This cosmic doorway is only open for a very short time, only for a few hours, on the night of Pesach. The Haggadah points out that, quoting, "One who does not see himself as if he has left Egypt has not fulfilled his obligation in the telling of the story," unquote. The Exodus is not only an event in our ancient history, it is a continually occurring event, a psychological event, one that receives a dramatic boost every year on Seder Eve. The ancient Sefer Yetzirah, the master guide to understanding the structure of the universe, states that there are three general realms, referred to as Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. Olam, or world, refers to the dimension of space. Shana, year, refers to the dimension of time. These two form the presently known space-time continuum in which we live. Yet there is a third element, the one most people have no idea as to how it connects with the other two. The third element, Nefesh, soul, is the realm of mind, or thought. Now, thought, mind power, is the one dimension which rules over the space-time continuum of Olam and Shana. Thus, it is through Nefesh, meaning the power of the human mind, that we are able to elevate and liberate ourselves from the constricting prison of our material forms. Through the power of true mind, we can again experience what it means to be free souls. Souls not in bondage to the limitations of a mind imprisoned by the sensorial senses. The rituals of the Pesach Seder enable the true mind to be released and to experience the rapture of spiritual freedom. Yet in order for this to occur, the Seder must be observed properly in all its halachic details. More than this, one must activate the archetypes of the Seder by filling them with kavanot, or meditations. Now, this mental function of the mind enables the Seder and the Haggadah to be transformed into a platform for spiritual psychic ascent into the unknown realms of the inner mind. Once the Seder has been completed correctly with the appropriate kavanot meditations, one's soul is prepared to ascend on high on this Lil Shmorim, this guarded and protected night. Archetypes of the mind. Now for a word about archetypes and the techniques of spiritual mind. Know, then, that there are two ways of thinking and communication. We human beings exist in and interact with our outside world through cerebral sensorial processes, seeing, hearing, etc. This interaction with external stimuli explains to us the world around us. Yet there is another, an entirely different world, one much bigger than our outside world. This world is the true domain of the mind. This second world is the inner world of human consciousness, the realm of the imagination, feelings, and thought. In this world, things are very different than they are in the outer world. The inner world is only barely familiar to us. We experience it mostly through dreams at night. Upon awakening, we know we have experienced something, maybe even something awesome and profound. Yet in a few moments, sensorial external reality dominates and the realm of the mind is repressed into that which we call the unconscious. Now, do not be fooled. Just because our awareness of the realm of inner space has been pushed deep within the recesses of mind into the unconscious, do not think it has lost its power of influence. On the contrary, the unconscious mind directs the conscious mind as the wind blows the sails of a ship at sea. The power and influence of the unconscious on an individual's conscious psyche is well documented in psychological literature, especially in the works of Carl Jung in the Jungian school. The power of the unconscious manifests itself in how we interpret the outside sensorial world. The unconscious dictates to us our feelings and our underlying moods and impressions. All areas of thought that are not completely and analytically rational swell up from the unconscious mind. Indeed, feelings by their very nature rise up from deep within us, from the depths of the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind, therefore, is the proverbial rose-colored glasses which taint how we see and perceive everything in the outside sensorial world. We realize that all of our conscious thoughts are in one way or another tainted by some unconscious prejudice, preference, or predisposition. Such taints are referred to in psychological language as projections. Now, these projections act as veils that cover the true nature of a thing. We perceive our own self-imposed veils over a thing, and usually never the direct, untainted knowledge of the thing itself, uninterpreted to us by some aspect of our own unconscious mind. The holy Mikubalim, the Kabbalists, have long known about the psychological problem of veiled perceptions in all areas of life. They even have their own name to describe these psychological veils of ours. The Mikubalim call them the klipot, the shells. The holy Mikubalim have taught us that the klipot of projection are a blemished form of mind. This state of affairs came into being as a result of Adam's sin with the tree of knowledge, good and evil. In essence, the eating of the forbidden fruit of knowledge caused there to be a blemish in the knowledge, i.e. the collective mind of humanity. In the Kitvei HaArizal it is written that all souls were originally united as one grand super soul. All individual souls today are originally component parts of the super soul of Adam. Only as a result of the fall did our souls fragment and take upon themselves separate being and consciousness. Yet deep within us, in that area of our minds cut off to us as a result of the fall, i.e. our unconscious mind, there is still a remembrance of the original state of unity shared by all souls. In a way, at the deepest level of the human psyche, we are, as a race, we all think alike. In a way, at the deepest level of the human psyche, we all communicate in the same non-verbal ways. This is a collective stratum in the levels of the unconscious. This is the residual memory of our long-lost original unity. The holy Mikubalim teach that it is the duty and destiny of each and every individual soul to remember from what part of the supernal body of Adam did his neshama soul emanate. Now, this requires of us to remember something deep within the unconscious. Now, here lies the problem. How can we discover knowledge buried so deeply in the unconscious mind? We do not know what is there or even where there is such a thing. It is virtually impossible for man to delve into the depths of the unknown mind, unguided and unaided. Now, such a search without direction would be completely futile. If such explorations did prove successful in uncovering any enlightening information, rest assured that this epiphany did not come about other than by the direction and permission of your unconscious. How then can man learn to navigate inner space successfully to the point where he can recognize his own inner source? How can we ever overcome the fall and descent into consciousness and the loss of our original stature of pure, unadulterated mind? Now, left to our own devices, we do not stand a chance. Yet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, well aware of our fallen state and the inner workings of our conscious and unconscious mind, has provided for us a means to accomplish a rectification of our fallen state. The Holy One has provided for us the roadmap, the set of directions to be followed. By doing so, we can restore that which we have lost. It should come as no surprise that this set of directions is none other than our holy Torah. Torah is the owner's manual for the human mind. The one who studies it and practices it acquires the title of being fully human. Those of us who fall short of Torah can wonder if we can truly call ourselves Adam, man, created in the image of God. For without the Torah to rectify our original image, our stature, what have we left today is only a small remnant of what once was. Once we were called Adam. Today, only a choice few that achieve a tikkun, a rectification of the sin of Adam, can merit that title. And that title being Ben Adam, or Son of Man, Son of Adam. This was the title ascribed by God to the prophet Ezekiel, the one who gazed upon the chariot and the heavenly throne. It is this vision that made him be a Ben Adam. Now this needs to be explained. As mentioned above, there are two worlds in which we live, the inner unconscious world and the outer conscious world. We relate to each of these worlds through the means of communication unique to that realm. We communicate with the outer conscious world, and thus with each other, through a means of communication created by the conscious mind, but totally unknown to the unconscious mind. Now this is the vehicle of language, spoken word. The unconscious mind, however, does not know of or recognize words. The unconscious mind speaks through the medium of pictures. These pictures are universal and are applicable to all mankind according to each soul's unique source. To understand the matter of the modes of communication used by our individual unconscious to communicate with our unconsciousnesses, if you will, of others, as well as with the conscious world, we must have a rudimentary understanding of the workings of the supernal Sefirot. The workings of the mind-soul. To begin with, we must remember a great rule outlined in the Zohar. In the book of Job 19:26, it is written, "In my flesh will I perceive God." This verse is understood as saying that by the examination of, in quotes, my flesh, meaning the inner dynamics and operations of both human biology and psychology, we're able to grasp an understanding of the macrocosm, or in other words, the study of the microcosm, which is in our grasp, enables us to understand the macrocosm, which is not. We cannot learn anything about the 10 Sefirot of Atzilut by observing them directly, for we do not have the spiritual or technological ability to explore this dimension. What we can do, however, is examine and explore the 10 Sefirot of the Malchut of Asiyah, which constructs what we call the image of man. And from this mapping, superimpose our findings onto the greater picture of the universe. Indeed, Rabbi Chaim Vital used this method throughout his writings to explain the Sephirotic universes. The human mind, as we have discussed, is divided into two sections, the conscious and the unconscious. The human brain is also divided into two lobes, the right and the left. Thinking and cognition is also divided into two different modes, the rational and the intuitive. Of the Sefirot, two correspond to the head, Chokhmah and Binah. Communication is also divided between words and pictures. So with all the ingredients here, we can now construct our model and see what it is that our Creator has formed. We have a conscious mind, the left lobe of the brain, rational thinking, words, and the Sephirot Binah on one side. And we have the unconscious mind, the right lobe of the brain, intuitive thinking, pictures, and the Sephirot Chokhmah on the other side. Now, let's add to this, and we have an external physical world perceived by us through our senses, and an internal spiritual world experienced through our inner archetypes. The physical world around us is seen to the eye, and the spiritual world surrounding the physical is unseen to our eye. Applying this last association to the above, we find that the conscious, rational thinking mind of the left lobe of the brain, Binah, deals with our outside visible physical world and communicates with it through the vehicle of speech and words. Our unconscious, intuitive, cognitive mind of the right lobe of the brain, Chokhmah, deals with our inside, invisible spiritual world and communicates using pictures and archetypes. Both of these realms are of equal importance. The human species was designed to exist simultaneously in both the visible and invisible realms. Each realm is governed by its own rules. Each realm is perceived in its own way. We humans have needs that derive from each of the soul realms. These include our physical needs for food and shelter, and our invisible needs for emotional, intellectual, and spiritual support. Our needs, therefore, must each be filled in that way that is unique to each world. One will not find fulfillment from hunger with kind emotional words, nor will one who is lacking emotional, intellectual, or spiritual fulfillment be helped by merely being given a piece of bread. We all know how to fulfill physical needs. We simply follow the laws of physical society and work to fulfill our physical needs. Now, let it come as no surprise, then, that this is the exact same manner that one's inner, intuitive, unconscious spiritual needs are also met. Yet, how can we define what our needs are in an invisible and unconscious universe? Indeed, this cannot be answered rationally, for the answer comes from the realm of the intuitive and the psychic. In other words, the answer comes from Chokhmah, not from Bina. The intuitive Chokhmah, right brain, unconscious mind is nourished through archetypal forms and images, such as art and music. The rational Bina, left brain, conscious mind is, in quotes, fed with intellectually stimulating materials such as science and math. Now, we would no longer be human if we lost our need or appreciation of either. The pursuit after art and music, science and math, all of these are integral human needs. In light of all that we have explained until here, we can now begin to understand the psychological and mystical human need for archetypal ritual. It is the performance of ritual acts that are the archetypal picture language of the unconscious mind, which by now I pray you should know is synonymous with the human soul, meaning the neshama. We humans have the need to communicate with our physical world in a rational, verbal manner. Without such communication, we cannot come to provide for our physical needs. We thus suffer and possibly die from the lack thereof. The same law applies to the spiritual world. We must speak the language of the soul, the unconscious mind. We must enable it to communicate with our conscious selves by the only means available to it, meaning pictures, archetype, ritual, and symbol. If we fail to provide for the needs of our unconscious, intuitive, spiritual right brain, Chokhmah selves, then what suffers and can possibly die is our soul, the most precious essence of our being. And yet, as we've discussed above, our unconscious mind, our spiritual soul, is the dominant part of the human mind. It controls consciousness similar to the wind in the sails of the ship at sea. Yet, as any good or even bad sailor can tell you, just because the winds are blowing does not mean that the ship is on the right course. Unless one practices the art of correct sailing, one gets seriously blown off course. Unless one knows the rules of the sea, one can end up lost, or worse, doomed. What we learn from this is the importance of respecting the needs of the unconscious mind, the spiritual soul. It indeed has a message to tell. It indeed has needs of its own. It is indeed not only a part of us, it is the lion's share, the majority partner. Neglect the majority, and it will be the minority that will suffer. Reject the needs of the unconscious, and it will be the conscious mind that will suffer. The archetypes of the mitzvot. This is the underlying meaning as to why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us specific ritual commandments to perform. It is these mitzvot that have to be performed precisely in a certain prescribed manner that are the food of the soul and the communications of the unconscious mind. Indeed, the 613 mitzvot are the collective archetypes of the national Jewish collective super soul. This cannot be denied, and if one were to try to deny this, the peril would be to one's own inner psychological stability. Rabbi Chaim Vital expounded on this point in his Shari Kedusha in the first section, where he stated as there are 613 mitzvot of the Torah, so are there 613 corresponding parts of the Jewish soul, the nefesh. If one lacks fulfillment of any one mitzvah, then his soul is blemished, or if you will, handicapped. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to the Jewish people the ritual commandments of the Torah, He was providing for the unconscious spiritual mind soul its necessary nourishment. Only the 613 mitzvot can serve as the conduit for the reception of the divine radiance necessary to sustain the soul. This is by God's design. He did this only for the Jewish people. For once the Jewish people were to achieve full balance between the three realms of space, time, and mind, then they would teach this accomplishment to the nations in the days of Mashiach. It is no wonder then why the Jewish people have survived throughout centuries of horrible persecution and exile. The reason is because our mitzvah performance has provided for us enough divine radiance to maintain a proper state of psychic or psychological inner balance. This strengthened our inner resolve and enabled us to develop an almost psychic sense, an inner knowledge of truth, justice, morality, and spirituality. This is what ensured our survival. The inner resolve of our unconscious spiritual mind-soul is the indwelling spark of the divine, known throughout Torah literature as the Shekhinah. The Holy One exists above time, space, and consciousness. The Kadosh Baruch Hu knows well how to integrate all three realms of His creation. Thus, we, the Jewish people, by walking in the divinely ordained or revealed plan, enable ourselves to become lords of time and space by being subservient to the power and needs of the mind spirit, conscious and unconscious, thought and spirit, rational and intuitive, bina and chokhmah, word and archetype. In spite of the fact that to the secular rationalist, the surrender of his intellect to a, in quotes, nebulous spiritual force is an offensive thing, nonetheless the need to do so is not merely a religious one. It is a psychological necessity. Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, writes in his collective works, volume 13, in paragraph 7, quote, "The intellect does indeed do harm to the soul when it dares to possess itself of the heritage of the spirit. It is in no way fitted to do this, for spirit is something higher than intellect, since it embraces the latter and includes feelings as well. It is the guiding principle of life that strives towards superhuman shining heights." Unquote. Our subservience of intellect to spirit is expressed by our performance of ritual commandments. Nowhere does this become more obvious and relevant than with Pesach, and especially the Seder. The mitzvah of the Seder. Pesach is Jewish Independence Day. It was on this day so long ago in history that our ancestors were miraculously freed from our bondage to the Egyptians. The miraculous manner of our redemption is well known to everyone. What is not so well known is the psychological effect this redemption had upon collective Israel at the deepest levels of our collective unconscious. The Holy Mikabolim revealed to us that our Jewish souls, born and unborn, were redeemed and left Egypt along with our ancestors. We must understand that there is a unique relationship between souls born and unborn. We do not only carry the genes of our ancestors, we also carry their memories. This is the source of collective memories that bond the people, any people, as a cohesive group, regardless of the passage of time. The souls of us alive today were indeed in Egypt thousands of years ago. They were pre-incarnate within our ancestors. In other words, our souls were still unattached parts of the super soul of our ancestors. As they left Egypt, so did we. Now, although later on in years our souls separated and incarnated individually, the collective memories of our past dwell within the genes that form the area of the brain that houses our unconscious. This then is the reason for the telling of the Haggadah. The word Haggadah comes from the Hebrew word Hegid, which means to tell. Thus, the word Haggadah can best be translated as the telling. Yet this telling is not simply a mere story about what happened in ages gone by. This telling is a reminder. It is a reminder as to where we are supposed to be now. The telling, the Seder, is the archetypal story of the Jewish people and is ingrained within every Jewish soul. The purpose of the telling is not to remind us about the past, but rather to open our eyes about the present. The Pesach Seder speaks to us in the pictorial language of the unconscious mind-soul. It is the food for the soul. The eating of matzah and maror and the drinking of the 4 cups of wine act out for us a never-ending story. Performing a Seder in any way different or less than that prescribed by halakha hinders the ability of the mind-soul, the spirit, to be properly nourished from the heavenly source. If the soul starves, it is the, in quotes, I who will face the psychological consequences. If we do things in the prescribed manner, by removing all chametz from our environment and observing the Pesach in accordance to divine law, then we enable our unconscious to express itself. We enable our unconscious to properly align our inner psychological turmoils. The mind can thus be restored to mental health. Life just got a bit better on both individual and collective level. Now, the message is clear. Wake up, sleeping souls. Grasp your freedom. Grasp your freedom from that which imprisons your unconscious mind-soul and keeps you in bondage to this world and in exile from your true spiritual nature. Rise up and proclaim freedom. Freedom from ignorance. Freedom from spiritual infancy. Freedom from the stranglehold limitations of our sensorial senses. Freedom to be what we truly are. Multi-leveled, trans-dimensional beings of both spirit and body. Or as the Kabbalah would say, or with an aleph and not or with an ayin. Carl Jung, in The Undiscovered Self, page 63, sums this up eloquently and states, it is unfortunately all too clear that if the individual is not truly regenerated in spirit, society cannot be either. For society is the sum total of individuals in need of redemption. And now a special word for our Benei Noah non-Jewish friends with regards to Pesach. The Pesach Seder and the following 7-day holiday serves as archetypes exclusively for the Jewish people. This occasion was not a universal event experienced by all mankind. This event was experienced by only one small nation. Only the nation of Israel have it ingrained in their collective psyche, the archetypes of Pesach. Therefore does Hashem himself command that no stranger, not any non-Jew, is allowed to partake of the Pesach. Indeed, that's a quote from Exodus 12:43. Rambam in his Laws of Pesach in the 9th parak in the 7th halacha states that this refers even to a ger toshav, who we today would call a Benei Noah, the biblical name for the righteous Gentile. The Pesach Seder is one of the few times when a Ben or Bat Noach cannot be invited to the Jewish home for the celebration. This is a literal fulfillment of Hashem's commandment. Now, I know many dear Benei Noach friends who truly wish to participate in Seder activities. Unfortunately, being that they were not at the first Seder in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, they have no internal reference to psychically connect with all the later ones. For the Ben or Bat Noach to observe any semblance of a Seder would actually cause their souls spiritual harm, according to the laws of incongruousness. Although many Benei Noach feel, in quotes, like cheated, that they cannot participate in Pesach, there are still other archetypal events that they can celebrate. Rosh Hashanah, the New Year Day of Judgment, being one of them. Even the Shabbat can be respected as a remembrance of the act of creation, as long as the Ben Noach does not refrain from doing work, in the same way that work is forbidden to the Jew. At Pesach and later at Sinai, God chose the Jewish people to be his own. He imbued the Jewish soul with an inherent holiness. This is a gift from God not dependent upon the individual Jew. Whether the Jew act with holiness or profanity, God will cleanse his soul through hell if necessary to fulfill his promise to Israel, that all Israel will have a portion in the world to come, as it's referenced in Isaiah chapter 61 in the first pasuk. As for the Benei Noach, well, he or she too acknowledges God's word and the covenant for the Jewish people. Yet unlike the Jew, any acquisition of holiness on the part of a righteous Gentile is hard-earned, certainly no gift. The reward for this will be great in the world to come. In essence, a truly righteous Gentile who has abandoned the idolatries of the world's religions by God's command, and lives by the high moral caliber of the 7 universal laws, doesn't need a holiday of Pesach. Such a Ben or Bat Noach has no need of a collective memory of ancient archetypes, because he or she is created a life of emancipation right now. Now this is the secret. While Pesach is a holiday which celebrates a psychic phenomena for us, the Ben or Bat Noach has their own, in quotes, Pesach, but not on any specific day, but rather every day, all the while that they live free of the fallen ways of the non-righteous Gentile world. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Righteous Gentile world. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Righteous Gentile world. Baruch